Hello again. This time we are looking at John 6, chapter 6, verses 15 through 21, where Jesus walks on the water. This occurs after Jesus feeds the 5,000 and is acknowledged as prophet and shows himself to be king. And so we're going to begin there with our questions off of the worksheet. So you should have read John 6:15 for the first question. 1. Why does the crowd seek to make Jesus king? He just fed them. They didn't have to work, and they received everything that they needed to eat and plenty more, and they looked at this as an answer to their worldly problems. Question 2. How does Jesus respond to the crowd's desire? That isn't his task at this time. The crowd would make him an earthly king, but it is more important that Jesus is their spiritual king. That is, that he goes to the cross and dies to pay the ransom of death and their sin, and that he rises again so they can live eternally with God. They don't seem to realize that God has always been providing their daily bread, that he has always looked out for them. And so they don't need to make Jesus a bread king. They're already receiving these gifts from God. He's just using the means of their own labor. So he sends the crowd away when they try to make him an earthly king. So now we're at verses 16 to 18, and we come to question 3. Jesus sends the disciples ahead to rest in Capernaum, but they don't have an easy journey. Why? Well, it starts to become dark, and as they're attempting to row across the lake, a wind whips up and it blows against them. And so they have to drive with their oars and are making almost no time trying to cross the lake. They've left Jesus up in the mountains to pray as he told them to go ahead, not realizing what is about to happen. So why are they having a difficulty? Well, nighttime and the wind. John 6:19. Question 4. What miracle or sign does God have Jesus do to reunite him with his disciples? Well, you should know by the title. Jesus comes walking across the waves as easily as you or I would walk on a street. And he makes much faster time than them because they have the wind blowing. Maybe they're making a mile an hour, a half a mile an hour. Jesus probably walks at 3 to 5 miles an hour. So they see him coming in the darkness, and they make an assumption. Here they are, scared in the middle of the night, and they see a figure they don't readily recognize walking on the water, which leads us to Matthew 14:25. We take a minor detour so we can find the answer to this question. Number 5. What did the disciples think was occurring when they saw Jesus? They think it's a ghost. And ghosts, or spirits of the dead, come back, are considered bad luck, signs of ill fortune and perhaps death coming. And so when they see Jesus, it inspires in them their superstitions, the things that they believe are true, which are not. As today, we have our own superstitions. So they think of this superstition, and they fear for their life and for their future. Which leads us to number 6. How were the disciples feeling? Fearful, right? Terrified, scared unto death itself. They were feeling like they had been deserted by God, deserted by their Lord Jesus. They've been left alone with this wind in the darkness and now a ghost, just waiting for death to come. Read John 6:20 to 21. What does Jesus tell the disciples? Jesus' message is the message that comes again and again in the Bible. Do not be afraid. What do the angels say to Mary, the angel, Gabriel? Do not be afraid, I bring thee good tidings of great joy. Later on, the angels will tell Mary, and etc., that Jesus isn't in the tomb. Do not be afraid. And we see angels and God coming to people again and again. Do not be afraid. Well, do not be afraid. It's a message of God. Why? Because God is in control, and he has defeated the greatest enemy, death. So, number 8, what miracle closes out this historic event? It's one of those you probably don't even notice until you read it, because I told you to read it. But in verse 21, it tells us, and then their boat was in Capernaum. Don't have to row the rest of the way. Jesus takes them instantly across the lake. Pretty cool teleportation. So an interesting miracle to close out the event. Jesus doesn't just take care of them physically and spiritually, he also provides for these little miracles. Finally, verse 9. Let's apply this to us. Having seen how God acted to show his love to the disciples, how is God to act? Is God going to act when we have a crisis in our lives? Like right now, during the quarantine. Well, he's going to protect us. He's going to do minor and major miracles. He's going to provide for our good needs, like he did with the feeding of the 5,000, like he does here in transporting his disciples to the other shore. He's going to tell us, do not fear, because I am with you always, even to the end of the ages. He's going to act for our benefit and for our good, and most importantly, for the benefit of the church. He says all things work together for good to those who love the Lord. He's going to intervene in history miraculously and through ordinary means so that his church might grow and we might be maintained in our faith so that we can rest forever as his children. Thank you. And next time, we'll see where we go.